Hello and welcome back to The Drag Detective, where today we are going to be talking about some of the most obvious challenge wins ever on Drag Race. Now, we're talking about like the challenge is over or the runway is over, and quite literally everybody that is watching is like, oh, this bitch won. Drag Race usually tries to give you like 2 or 3 people that like, oh, it could go to them. That's why we have like high placements, because it'd be really boring if like every single week they made it so clear as day who was going to win the challenge. Then there's like no suspense. Who cares? But sometimes there are just challenges, there are just episodes where one single queen rises to the top and everyone else either plummets to the bottom or is just fine, forgettable, whatever. So we're going to talk about some of those instances today. And let me know in the comments below if I miss any after you finish watching this video. So let's start out with one that I want to talk about because it's, for me, the first real clear one. But it involves someone that I don't like talking about, so we'll just kind of glaze over it. It is Sharon Needles in the Apocalyptic Design Challenge from episode 1 of season 4. So they had to make looks based off of things that they pulled off of other queens from like past seasons as zombies in the parking lot, and then make things out of it of like apocalyptic fashion couture. And I would say most of these looks range from messy to an assault on the eyes to what am I looking at to what if The Walking Dead was like serving cunt. And the one person that I think really pulled through, now there was people that did fine. LaShawn Beyond had a lot of stuff on her head. She looks fine. But the one person who really made something that both looked good, fit the theme, and like had a gag was Sharon Needles, who had this bald cap, who had this really nice gown, had blood coming out of her mouth. It sucks, but sometimes terrible people are very talented, and this episode was a prime example of that. The next one I want to talk about, this one I put on and I took back off and I put on, and it's like there is another queen who does well this episode, but when you factor in runway, when you factor in storyline, when you factor everything in, it was just very clear who was going to take this episode. And this is the RuPaul Talk Show Challenge from season 6, which was won by Courtney Act. Now, this was like a really, like, they very heavily edited the challenges back then, and you can kind of tell that, like, they made some of these look worse, or they made, like, awkward moments that maybe weren't as awkward, but, like, still, this was a very hard challenge for this cast. Even Bianca struggled, and this was, like, the only episode that Bianca's ever struggled in. You have Jocelyn bringing up Georgia Holt's potential abortion. You have Trinity K. Bonet calling Chaz Bono Chad. You have Adore Delano saying party to Georgia talking about living through the Depression. It was rough for mostly everybody. The only 2 queens that did not, I don't want to say like faceplant, because Bianca didn't really faceplant, I guess, were Courtney and Ben de la Creme. They both were very personable. They both asked them interesting questions. They both had jokes. But really, like, Courtney was definitely the standout. And when we moved to the runway, which was the Animal Couture runway, this is where Courtney pulls out her gigantic bird wings. It was a huge moment, and I think the moment that, like, leveled up the show to, like, the next. Like, that's how we get from season 6 to Violet Chachki's tartan reveal look in the season 7 premiere. Like, things like this. And once that came down the runway, it was over. Yes, Ben had a really cool bug look, but, like, this was Courtney's episode 1000%. Much to RuPaul's chagrin. Now talking about some design challenges. We have, like, 3 in a row we're going to talk about. The next one, I think, is Violet Chachki in the Hello Kitty ball, where they had to make a Hello Kitty look, like actual Hello Kitty herself, like make her into a new character. And then they had to make a couture look using only Hello Kitty branded merchandise and some like random fabrics. And there were people that did okay this episode. Ginger, especially because, like, some of her other designs this season were not great. Pearl was fine, I guess. Katya had a really funny Hello Kitty character. But Violet's Hello Kitty couture look is one of the top 5, probably, design looks of all time on this show. We did like a video about this, like I think it was earlier this year, and this was like definitely up there in the votes. It's insane. It's amazing, and no one even came close. So the second that this came out, it was very clear Violet Chachki was going to be winning this episode. And the same could be said about the following season's makeover, which was very different from a regular makeover. They were each paired with someone from Little Women LA, and they were assigned a character from Wizard of Oz, and then they had to make 2 looks for themselves and their makeover partner based off of that character. The usual people that like would do well in this challenge kind of didn't. Like, Kimchi did okay, but it was nothing special. Thorgy did, again, okay, but it was nothing special. And then everyone else just, like, struggled, like, hardcore. Robbie, Bob, Chi-Chi, Derek, they were all a mess. The only person who truly, I think, stood out in this challenge was Naomi Smalls, who made 2 Scarecrow looks that were so chic. And, you know, you think Scarecrow and you're like, oh, this is going to look so costumey. Like, it's so much easier to do, like, Dorothy or to do the Witch and, like, make those more high fashion. Scarecrow, like, good luck. No, she found a way to make this so couture, so stunning, and it was a home run. Very, very obvious win. And especially for Naomi, this was a really good moment for her because she kind of faded into the background in the beginning of the season, and then she had just survived her first bottom 2 placement after bombing the Snatch Game. So, like, going into this episode, it wouldn't have been crazy to think she might be one of the next couple queens to go. And instead, this solidified her as someone who was a threat for sure and took her to the finale. Now we have season 10, and season 10 had some pretty bad challenges. I mean, the Evil Twins, Breast World, Pharmarusical, which I like more than most people, but still, it's not great. The Last Ball on Earth was kind of a crazy concept because it's like, oh, global warming is like running rampant. It's the year is 2100, and now the summer months are winter and the winter months are summer. So they did like a summer realness, but you're supposed to come out in like a winter coat. And then they did like, ooh, winter eleganza, but you're supposed to come out on like a swimsuit. So it was just like a little bit confusing. And then it's like, oh, I guess we have to leave the Earth because it's gonna like blow up. So we have to go to Mars, and like we're wearing like Martian couture. It was a very weird concept for a ball, and a lot of the looks are not great. Just across the board, there are some bad looks in this episode. Even in the top 3, like the top 3 was very much like, okay, Cracker with this. I do think that Eureka and Mayhem both had some really, really good looks, but truly, the only person that had 3 standout looks that I adored and the judges adored was Aquaria. And this was obviously her first like moment on the season. She'd been low at one point already. This was her first challenge win. And this is where I really started to root for her. I remember being like, I know of her, I've been following her, but I don't know exactly if I want her to win yet. This is when I was like, oh, no, my eyes are on Aquaria. And she's been one of my favorites ever since. I just got to meet her this year. I love Aquaria so much. And this episode was hers. Like, it was hers. No one else even came close. There's one more in season 10 that I want to talk about. It is the makeover episode. This makeover was rough. They were making over, like, YouTube stars, like, online sensations, whatever. And the people that you think would do well, Aquaria, definitely not. She was actually one of the worst. Asia's was good, but the makeup on her makeover partner was a little crazy. She gave herself the much better jacket and like whipped one up quickly for her makeover partner when her partner was like, hey, I love that jacket. And instead of being like, oh, well, you can have it, she's like, I'll make you one in 30 minutes. How about that? Eureka's was fine, I guess, but the hair loaves are crazy. The makeup on Frankie Grande was crazy. Really, the only person who stood out and whose partner was the standout, like in personality, in everything, which is crazy when you have Frankie Grande on stage. And you know, if he's not the center of attention, he breaks out into hives. So the fact that Ms. Cookie was able to be the standout of this episode, the looks were so cute, they had such a cute dynamic, it was just so clear from the jump that Cracker was winning this episode. And it couldn't have come at a better time because she'd been edged for a win the entire season, and this was at the top 6. Up next, we have, from season 11, Akira Chanel Davenport winning the Drag Olympics challenge. So this was kind of a different kind of challenge. It was like an Olympic thing, and they had to do like different things like stunts and twerking and whatever. And there were people that did well in this episode, like, you know, Plastique did fine, Brooke did fine, whatever. But the only thing I remember is Akira's twerking. And the only runway that I remember is Akira's stunning gold gown. Like, yes, there were other people that maybe did fine or did well this episode, but this was Akira's, like, moment to shine. She did so well in the challenge. She did so well on the runway. This was her moment, and it was everything. I also think Nina West had this moment in the Magic Challenge. You know, she is so campy, she is so fun, and she took the reins of this challenge with her team of Suga and Brooke and just led them to victory. She was so good. The other team was an absolute nightmare, so it was very clear who was going to win this challenge. Moving to season 12, I think that the Choices 2020 debate was super obvious who was going to win. There were people like Widow who did well, Crystal did well, Heidi did well, but they were all laughing at Jada because Jada was being the most funny and was being the most out of pocket in the best way. And then even looking at that runway, there was a lot of really good runways for the red, white, and blue category, but Jada's was so stunning, knowing that she made it herself. It was so avant-garde. It was giving superhero. It was giving if Captain America was a drag queen. It was everything. This was Jada's moment and one of my favorite episodes of my favorite season. Then we have the Discomentary Challenge from season 13, which this is another one where like there were people that did well, but the only person I remember from this challenge, the only one I will ever remember from this very forgettable challenge was Olivia Lux, who just had like that attitude and that energy that you wanted for like this disco challenge. It was a weird challenge. It was like kind of partly a rusical, but not really, because they were just dancing to RuPaul's narration. I don't know, it was weird. And they were basically like going through the different facets of disco, the history of disco. A lot of people kind of flopped it. It was very awkward. It wasn't a great challenge, but Olivia hit the nail on the head of just the energy that was necessary to make this challenge work. And then she looked super hot on the runway. So it was just a slam dunk week for Olivia Lux, who had been doing well, super well up to that point, but had yet to get her first win. And this was like her big moment, her big like breakout episode. One of the most obvious ones I'm sure that everyone is expecting to be on this list is Deja Skye in the season 14 Snatch Game. Famously, the one that made RuPaul put everyone in the bottom except for Deja and make them fight in a Lollapalooza to stay. There were some bad performances. Willow Pill's Drew Barrymore, Jasmine Kennedy's Betsy DeVos, George's Alana Glazer. Then there were ones that were fine. Bosco's Gwyneth Paltrow, Diabetes Ozzy Osbourne, Lady Camden's, Shakespeare, Angeria was Tammy Brown. There was definitely some okay moments throughout the Snatch Game, but for being like the staple challenge of Drag Race, it was not giving what it needed to be giving, except for Deja, who did Lil Jon, which was a perfect character choice because you have so many catchphrases and just like little things to pull from. And if you can't think of anything to say, just do another yeah, and it made RuPaul laugh every single time, which was a stark contrast to what she was doing with everyone else, which was cringing. So this might be the most, like, obvious win ever, like, of all time in Drag Race, because it was the only episode where everyone was in the bottom except for one person. So Deja ate that. We love her. This is another one that I almost took off, but I do think that it was close enough. And it is the, like, Queens Going to Heaven challenge from season 15, where they were doing ads about what heaven would be like for drag queens. And Sasha Colby did her famous neck snap moment that became like a running gag for her on the entire season. She fit it into her final performance. Like, this was something that made RuPaul laugh so much, and she was smart enough to go, oh, I need to do that for the rest of the season. And there was definitely a lot of people that did well in this challenge, but it just felt like from the moment the challenge ended, this was Sasha Colby's moment. Like, it was episode 2, or 3, I guess, but like the second challenge, and she's Sasha Colby, and she just absolutely devoured. There's no way anyone else is getting a win, and there wasn't anyone that deserved a win more than her. And I love her more than anything. A few episodes later, we have the Snatch Game, and I hope they never do this again. They did Snatch Game for, like, the third challenge. I think this is literally the very next episode. So, like, most of the cast is there. This is the biggest cast in history. So there's, like, 14 queens doing Snatch Game, and most of them are terrible. There are some that are good, like Jax as the Mona Lisa, Mistress as Rosie O'Donnell, Marsha as Tim Gunn. Like, there's definitely some good Snatch Games, but the only stellar Snatch Game was Lucy LaDuca as Joan Rivers. And, like, even comparing this to Jimbo's, I don't know if I could pick a favorite. They both did so well. She was embodying Joan Rivers. Then on the runway, she had a really, really fun runway for, like, the horror category. This was just a slam dunk episode for Lucy LaDuca. And I remember watching going, no one else is winning. Like, it's clear as day going to be Lucy LaDuca. Because not only did she pick a character that RuPaul loves and do it perfectly, but she volleyed with people. She ran that Snatch Game. And she had to deal with Sugar and Spice. So, like, just that alone, she deserves some kind of medal. But it was a very deserved win. And the last one we're going to talk about is from the most recent season, season 16. And it is the Girl Group Challenge, where the queens were put into 3 groups and each given a different RuPaul song to make a remix out of. The one group got Courage to Love. The other group got, what was it, Spotlight? I don't even remember what it was. Starlight? You're a Star Bait? Oh, something. It was so forgettable that I don't even remember what the song was. And then the third group, which was made up of 3 of the biggest underdogs at this point in the season, in Megami, Maya Aman LePage, and Geneva Carr. And then Nymphia Wind, who'd already won a challenge. She'd been doing super well. But when you look at it on paper, this group doesn't look like they're gonna, like, annihilate when you have, like, another group that has Saphira and Morphine and Dawn. But they were given one of RuPaul's greatest songs of all time, ASMR Lover. And when I say that is just so unfair, I can't even put it into words. The other group got Courage to Love, and another group got ASMR Lover. Like, no. If I was there, I'd be like, this is a setup. This is a setup. Because how are you going to tell me that they get to put a verse onto one of RuPaul's most cunty, dancey, iconic songs, and I have to put a verse onto Courage to Love? I would have walked out. I would have said, no. And unsurprisingly, the ASMR group absolutely demolished, and it was not even close. I can't even remember what the song was for one of the groups. That's how not close it was. Literally left my memory, whatever they had. I think it was Spotlight or You're a Star, something. I don't know. But that is one of my favorite moments of the entirety of season 16, which had so many good moments. Because going into this challenge, I know the other queens were like, that group's in trouble. And what did they do? Stomped on everybody. Wasn't even close. One of the biggest blowouts we've ever seen. Partly because their song was, like, miles better than what the other people got. But also, they just had such good chemistry. They had Megami there to help with the verses, because Megami is the goddess of writing a verse. They had Nymphia They had Maya to help with the choreo. Like, they just had all these special ingredients it took to make a good number. And that is, I watch that number all the time. To this day, I watch it constantly. So those are the obvious challenge wins from Drag Race that I picked out. But let me know, do you think one of these wasn't so obvious? Is there an obvious win that I didn't include? I will also be doing this for All Stars next week, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that. The links to all of my social medias are in the description below, as well as the links for Drag Duel, which is the drag competition show that I run with Bootsy on YouTube. Make sure you check out that. Also, I would love to make a video on Dragula Season 6. Like a riggery or something. I have so many thoughts on this season, but I just don't know how many of you guys watch Dragula. It's something that I would like to talk about. Let me know in the comments if the interest is there for a video on it, because like I feel like right now having UK 6 and Dragula 6 airing at the same time is just like chef's kiss. They're both so good, and I have so many thoughts on both. I can't wait to make videos on UK 6. I would love to make a video on Dragula, so let me know if that's something that you would like to see. But that is all for today, so I will catch you all in the next one.